Hi, I'm Tom Lehman, President of the PGA Tour Partners Club. Welcome to this edition of the club's Game Improvement video series developed exclusively for you, our members. In this edition, PGA Tour player Steve Jones reveals what has made him one of the PGA Tour's best putters. Steve will reveal his secrets, tips, and techniques for making the tough ones when they really count. In addition to your private lesson from Steve, Martin Hall, former instructor at the Nicholas Flick Golf Schools in Florida, will demonstrate several drills and practice routines that build upon Steve's instruction and are guaranteed to get strokes off your game. So get ready. There's a lot of action coming up in this edition of the Game Improvement video series.
Putting, perhaps the most humbling part of golf. Many great ball strikers have fallen victim to the challenges on the putting surface. Nowhere on the golf course can the effects of pressure be so overwhelming.
Did you know that 50% of the strokes you spend on the golf course is on the putting green? Well, today I want to show you some techniques that will help you in that area. But don't expect me to give all my secrets away, so stay with me.
The PGA Tour Partners Club presents the Game Improvement video series, developed exclusively for members. These informative instructional tapes take you into the minds of the PGA Tour's very best as they lay out their blueprint for better golf. In this edition, PGA Tour champion and former United States Open champion Steve Jones shares his insights for accurate putting. There's a lot about golf that doesn't exactly seem fair. All the bad bounces, balls in divots, the lip outs, and the fact that a 3-foot putt, well, actually counts as much as a 300-yard drive, counting one full stroke. A couple of old cliches come to mind. It's not how you drive, it's how you arrive. Or how about you drive for show and putt for dough? Sayings like these are said so often, well, you forget their real meanings. Hi again, everybody. I'm Jim Kelly. And in this edition of the PGA Tour Partners Club Game Improvement video series, we'll deal with that age-old nemesis, putting. Today's tips come from one of the best and brightest stars on the PGA Tour, and a man that knows about putting, especially under pressure, Steve Jones. First, Steve will talk about some of the fundamentals that put him on the road to success. Then he'll demonstrate that envied stroke technique. Steve also emphasizes the importance of reading greens, and then Steve wraps up with some insights and tips on how you can cope with pressure putting. Also in this program, we'll visit with Martin Hall. Martin will take what Steve says about putting and show you a couple of drills you can practice on the green, or even better yet, right there in front of your TV. But first, a little background on one of the PGA Tour's very best, Steve Jones. In 1989, Steve was on top of his career. He ranked as the #1 putter on the PGA Tour and captured 3 victories that year. But a dirt bike accident in November of '91 damaged the ligaments in Steve's finger so badly, he spent 3 years wondering if he would ever hold a club again.
When I was injured and I was at home and not knowing if I was ever going to play again, I was basically telling myself, you know, if I ever do get to play again, get that chance, I would really like to practice more, be more competitive, try to enjoy the game a little bit more, and really just have fun with the game.
Steve returned to the PGA Tour in '95 with a renovated grip and a renewed focus on his career. He used this fresh outlook to triumph at the '96 U.S. Open at Oakland Hills. It was the comeback story of the year. Steve admits he was inspired by a book written about the legendary Ben Hogan, who also came back after injury to win his Open at that same venue.
It really inspired me. You know, it kind of made me focus in a little bit better during the tournament, and especially since he had won 45 years earlier, it's kind of neat. And then after I, won the tournament, it was really incredible just to think that, he had a part in my victory.
Steve's winning ways continued through 1997 with a runaway victory at the Phoenix Open, due to his incredible touch on the greens.
Boy, I tell you what, my putter, I ought to bronze that thing when I'm done with my career.
Steve's putting excellence has earned him not only the respect of his peers, but 7 wins in the span of a decade. But Steve insists he couldn't have done it alone.
You never really do anything in life on your own. You always have a support of friends and family and people that care about you, and it's no different in golf.
You know, obviously, every player has his own unique approach to putting, and this champion, well, he's no different. Listen carefully now as Steve shows why he is one of the more successful putters on the PGA Tour.
Members, what is it you like about your putter? There's the long putter, the short putter, and various different other types. The reason people use long putters is to stabilize their left arm against their chest, and their right arm is the only arm moving. That way they can keep their club head square to the hole. Let's look at 3 different types of balanced putters. You have the toe balanced, the heel toe balanced, and the face balanced putter. There's not one putter that's suited for everybody. But the most important thing is that you like the way it looks and you like the way it feels. That's why I've used this for 15 years. There's a lot of putters out there, a lot of good ones, but find one you really like. That way you can have confidence in it and stick to it. The reason I use a short putter is because I putt with a straight left elbow. And what that enables me to do is to keep the putter head, my hands, and my shoulder working in a one-piece motion such as a pendulum. And that keeps the club head really square to the hole. There's no one technique that works best for everyone, but the most important thing is that your hands work together in a one-piece motion. Let's look at 3 of the most popular grips today. The baseball grip, the cross-handed grip, and the long overlap grip. I personally use a long overlap grip because when my finger is extended down the shaft, it stiffens the back of my wrist. Therefore, I'm able to keep my left side a lot firmer and my club face square to the ball. There's a lot of different things in the stroke that make you miss a putt. Number 1, I think, is grip pressure. It's very important to grip the putter at a certain pressure. Not real tight, but just firm enough to hold on to it so it won't wiggle all around in your hand. So when you get over the stroke, don't grip it tight so you can see the veins in your arms. Just nice and smooth, nice and firm. That way, take it back and accelerate. Try to do it the same every time. Nice and smooth. You don't want to grab that club and beat it to death, just nice and smooth, but you still need to keep it firm enough so your stroke will maintain that square to square movement. Let's talk about ball position. A lot of people have the ball too far forward in their stance or too far back. When you have the ball too far back in your stance, the putter is pushing the ball into the green and it will skip along the green. When the ball is too far forward, you're hitting it on too much of an upswing motion and it's hard to keep the blade square. The way I like to align my feet is I put them close together, square to the hole. Once I've aligned myself, my feet, hips, and shoulders square to the hole, then I separate my feet. It keeps you very square to the hole and everything flowing the right direction. And the most important thing is keeping your eye right above the ball. And the way you check this is to put your putter right on your eye and then I put the putter on the ball. And if you hit the ball, then you know you're in the proper position.
And now Martin Hall.
Fewer putts means lower scores, there's no question about that. And of course Steve Jones is a wonderful putter, he won the US Open. What a great setup he has to the ball and how much we can learn from that. I see so many people as I watch them putt, they get their lines all wrong. Now by that, I mean the shoulders are going one way, the arms are going another, the head's going another. If all those lines are loggerheads, you're not going to do a very good job of rolling the ball on line. So I think the first stage in becoming a better putter is to learn to set up properly. Here's the drill I'd love for you to do to learn to set up properly to your ball on the greens. So one of the great drills to make sure you're in a super setup position is to start with the putter up at eye level. You can see the leading edge of the putter is perpendicular to the ground. You can see that the arms are level and the eyes are level. If I turn to the side, I think you'll appreciate there just how my eyes and arms are fairly level. Often we see people with the right arm too high or the left arm too high. Whenever you get angles in the setup, one way or another, you're going to need compensations in the stroke. So one more time to get that set up. Putter perpendicular to the ground. Your shoulders will be fairly level. Your eyes are fairly level. That puts you in a very sort of, shall we say, squared off position. And then all you need to do from there is bend at the hips. And that puts you in a very good position where you've got no conflicting lines.
Now let's review some of Steve's main points for his fundamentals on more accurate putting. The most important tip for choosing a putter is select one that feels and looks good to you, one you can be completely comfortable with. The same, of course, is true for your grip. Pick a grip that works for you. A grip that feels comfortable will work better than one that's not completely comfortable. Use only enough grip pressure to maintain a square stroke pattern. The ideal ball position is with the ball under your left eye. This will ensure contact with the ball is made at the bottom of your putting stroke. Obviously, putting has always been a key ingredient to being successful on the PGA Tour. You know, we've seen scores of great putters walk the links and the fairways over the years, and we've seen the putting stroke change. It's been modified, and even today, changes continue to, well, to confuse. Let's look now at some of the great putting strokes and how and why they've changed. Over the years, the putting stroke has evolved away from the snappy wrist movements of players like Ben Hogan, Jerry Barber, Sam Snead, and Billy Casper. The main reason players back then used more wrist was because of the conditions of the greens. Today's players putt on finely tuned surfaces, but the legends of yesteryear had to battle the grain of the green. In fact, Sam Snead once said, "I never bothered much about the break. I just looked for the grain and putted the way the grain went." Due to the absence of verticut machines and other manicuring techniques, the greens back then were much slower and trickier to navigate. But advances in agronomy have brought a more uniform grain to every green, which meant players could concentrate on gaining more consistency and control in every roll.
If I could putt like Lauren Roberts, day in and day out, the pace of his stroke is just, it's never rushed. He has such good speed and a good tempo, and the ball just rolls. And I mean, he gets on one of those streaks, so he virtually makes everything.
Two-time putting leader Ben Crenshaw is a quintessential favorite among the players and the gallery. In fact, he loves his putter so much he nicknamed it Little Ben. Phil Mickelson, also famous for his putting touch around and on the greens, has earned 12 PGA Tour titles with his gentle stroke of the blade. Although putting surfaces have changed over time and the stroke has evolved over the years, one thing has remained constant. All great putters have one thing in common: confidence.
The biggest thing is confidence. I don't care what your stroke looks like or what you look like over the ball. If you have confidence, that's the biggest thing.
Whatever kind of green you encounter, play it with confidence and you'll have the best success. Obviously, everyone develops a very unique putting style. Now, Steve Jones will cover some of his techniques for good putting, and then we'll follow that up with some practical drills that you can use to improve your putting at home.
A lot of amateurs are too wristy in their stroke. I like to keep my left wrist firm because that keeps my blade square to the hole. If you get too wristy, it'll also cause you to get real quick. So keep it nice and firm with the left wrist, low and slow, and accelerate through.
When we talk about the problems that people have in the putting green, and I know a lot of you members out there suffer from this is the kiss of death in putting. It's a thing we all fight, it's a thing we all fear. I've got two drills that I think will help you take out unwanted wrist action. I think of the best putters I've seen, I think of Steve Jones, I think of Jack Nicklaus, I think of Phil Mickelson. One of the things they all do is they keep this lead wrist very still through the stroke. And you see in doing that, you don't add loft or take loft off, you don't open the club face, you don't close the club face. As I was once told, if you want to be consistent, you need some constants in the equation. Well, this is a constant, you need to have that. So two drills here, members, that I think you'll find helpful to check whether your left wrist is behaving or not. The first one is to just take a ball, go down the grip a bit more than normal, and put that ball between the grip end of the club and your left forearm. And just hold it in there lightly. Now, if you're making a, I shall call it a Steve Jones type of stroke, and you'll see the similarity here, you'll see that the shaft, the grip, the hand, the wrist, the arm, they all move as one going through. That's a great way to putt. When Steve Jones won the US Open up at Oakland Hills, that's just what he was doing. That type of action. Now, if you're applying leverage, if you're hitting too much with the right hand, if you're pushing instead of swinging, you will get this. This gap will widen, and of course the ball that was trapped between your left forearm and the grip will fall out. So that's great feedback for you. You can do this just before you play. You could even do it on the golf course after you've putted out. You could even do it prior to putting, actually, if your ball is marked. This would be the correct way. Shaft, left hand, left wrist, left arm grip, everything moving through the ball together, and this would be incorrect. This is applying leverage or failing to swing. And you can see when I use leverage, that gap widens so the ball drops out, and there's your feedback that you're flipping with the wrists. Now the second drill I've got for you to make sure that the left hand keeps moving, this one I stole from Dave Stockton, and I think we know he can hold a few putts. And apparently when Dave was a kid, I think it was his father, used to stand with a club just probably a couple of inches outside of his left hand. And what he would make him do is feel that he was going to hit the grip end of the club with his left hand just before the club head hit the ball. So it would be something like this. Now that again gives a very firm blow to the ball, as opposed to this, which of course would be incorrect. This would be the putter head getting to the ball before the left hand got to the shaft. Now, you could stick a club in your golf bag, you could stick a club out of your bookcase, or you could have your wife hold the club. Any and all of those would be helpful. The virtue of these drills is not just that you see them, that the benefit is that you go and do them and then suddenly, by golly, you feel something a bit different. So if you want to improve your putting, make sure that you do these two drills so you don't have the dreaded left wrist breakdown.
The reason a lot of you members miss putts is because you open or close the club face. It's not so much a hook stroke or a slice stroke. A lot of amateurs will do when they take the putter back, they come through and they'll open it with their wrists, which opens the club face, or they'll close it using the right hand too much. And the open stroke, and the reason you do that is because the back of your left hand is closing or opening. And you must keep the back of your hand going towards the target. That way you won't open it or close it. I try to keep everything square going back and square going through. I think this would work for you best.
I've certainly heard over the years how important it is to putt with the putter going straight back, straight through. And I've seen people spend a tremendous amount of time on the path that the putter swings on. Now, I'm not here to tell you that is of no consequence, but I'm here to tell you it's of little consequence compared with do you hit with the putter face square or open or closed. Now, a couple of styles that we might recognize. Gary Player all his life, Bobby Locke all his life, perhaps because they grew up on grainy greens, always felt that they hooked the ball into the hole. And they had a stroke that was very much into out. And they did look like they hooked the ball into the hole. But what they were really doing was still hitting with the face square at the bottom of the arc. Aoki, the great Japanese player, has often said that he feels he cuts the ball into the hole. Lee Trevino is another who feels that the heel is leading and he cuts the ball into the hole. And so in doing that, there's a slight out to in stroke. Now, I would contend that what they're both doing is one has a path that goes out, one has a path that comes in, but when it comes to the moment of contact, they're square. You see, putting is a lot like clapping hands. And the way you can find out if you're putting square is by using this. This is a piece of PVC pipe, that's all that is. I wrapped a bit of duct tape around it. And it's a great way to find out if you're hitting with the putter face square or open or closed. So here's how you could use this on the carpet at home. Get your putter in the center of that PVC pipe. If you strike it square, that's to say you have the whole face hit all the pipe at the same time, then it will, as it did there, roll end over end. You won't see it skid. However, let's say you're a player who hits with the face too open. That means the heel comes in early. Watch what happens to this pipe if I come in with the heel too early. That will be feedback for you. Let's say you're a player who hits with the toe end too soon. A lot of good players tend to do that. They pull the short putts. They get this look. It would go that way. So much to be learned at home by just taking a piece of PVC pipe and seeing if you can learn to make that roll fairly straight. If you can make that roll fairly straight, you're well on the way to being a good putter.
Let's talk about my stroke technique. The main thing I try to do after I get square to the hole is I think about keeping my putter head as square as possible on the way back and on the way through. And the only way you can do that is with an accelerating stroke. You don't want to decelerate the stroke. This is what it looks like. It's like a pendulum stroke, straight back, straight through. And the putter is just working by itself, nice and smooth. The centrifugal force, keeping the putter square. You have to keep your left wrist firm. You don't want to take it back too far and stop on it. I like to take it back short and accelerate through, making it almost every time.
The putting stroke, in my mind, is a pendulum stroke. If it is a pendulum stroke, then it's helpful to know where the top of the pendulum is, and that's up here, that's by the sternum. I'm going to take this plastic rod, put it in the end of my putter, and create a pendulum, and the top of the pendulum then becomes the sternum up here, rather like using a long putter. And you can see here, when the putter's below my sternum, that would be its lowest point of swing, the lowest point of the arc. Because of the way pendulums swing, that would be where the club head's going the fastest. That's where you should position the ball, right at the bottom of the arc, which happens to be the ball just under the left eye. So I love to have people feel when they putt that an extension of the putter would be right up there, like the long putter, and that gives you a pendulum type stroke. That's actually why the long putter works so well. So in setting up, let's make sure the putter head is under the sternum and the ball position is just in advance of that. Better to judge ball position from sternum and left eye than it is from foot position. Now, I made mention of a pendulum stroke. I know that's something Steve feels is important. Let me talk about what a pendulum is, what it really does. When you watch something swing back and forth like that, that's a pendulum swing, and there is acceleration present. And a lot of people seem to think that pendulums don't accelerate. Well, they do, as long as they're going downwards. The maximum speed would be right at the bottom. Pendulums create their own acceleration, and that's what we've got to do when we putt. I remember Ben Crenshaw saying one time that he felt when he was putting, he set it in motion, but once he had set it in motion, he just let the putter swing itself. I'm in favor of making a pendulum type swing which creates the acceleration, and to that end I've got a weight on a string here. I'm going to use that as our pendulum. Now start by swinging forwards, then back and forth and back and forth. That gives you very much the 1-2 rhythm, the 1-2 beat that all good putters have. Now if you apply too much pressure with the hands, if you rush the putter head, you'll get out of sync with the weight. You don't want to do that. You want to be doing something like this. Start by going here. There's the pendulum stroke, pendulum creating its own acceleration. Then of course you can just, shall we say, sneak into that ball. That gives you a very smooth, even rate of acceleration, so much better than helping with your hands. So if we're going to make it a pendulum stroke, let's remember that pendulum has a rhythm, a beat to it, and if you do that, you'll be on your way to putting much better.
One thing you can think about while you're stroking also is you don't want to pick the putter blade up into the air like this. You must keep it down low. You don't want to force it low, but as long as you keep it low and slow, that's a good way to keep that putter blade moving through the ball. Some of the problems that amateurs have is lower body movement. In the putting stroke, you really shouldn't have any. You kind of want to just keep yourself centered over the ball, level feet, and you don't want a lot of body movement while you're stroking it, because all that does makes it harder to keep the blade square to the hole. So keep your lower body real still, as your head is still also, and when you stroke it, then you can look up. But you don't really want to look up until the ball is at least 2 to 3 feet past you. Some people like to, on a shorter putt, they don't like to look up until the ball hits the cup. That's a good one too. Try it. Maybe you'll like one better than the other.
Come on, get in there. Get right in there.
At address, try to keep your weight evenly distributed between your feet, with maybe just a slight more weight on your left side. That will help you keep the putter low on the way back and low on the way through.
Two other thoughts to really polish that putting skill. One is the precision part of putting. You can putt with a sand wedge. Now I don't mean to loft it, I mean to take that leading edge of the sand wedge and feel that you have the leading edge of the sand wedge hit the equator of the ball. If you're hitting up too much or down too much, you won't get any roll out of this. So place the ball on the ground, take a sand wedge, take a putting grip, hold the sand wedge head just off the ground, leading edge level with the equator, and see if you can roll the ball that way. Good way for you to get a sense of how precise your stroke is. Putting stroke, left shoulder up, ball in the cup. That's a good one to remember. As I said, we see a lot of people pull short putts. I feel the reason most people pull their short putts is because when they swing, instead of the left shoulder working up, the left shoulder works around, the head moves. So the little rhyme that keeps me on track here is left shoulder up, ball in the cup. Left shoulder round, still above ground. So when you putt, You can do it holding your club in your right hand, just putting with your left hand, or you can just imagine there's one there. But try and make sure you work the left shoulder up as opposed to around.
So keep it nice and firm, the left wrist low and slow, and accelerate through. I try to keep everything square going back and square going through. I think it'll work for you best. This is what it looks like. It's like a pendulum stroke, straight back, straight through. And the putter is just working.
Now that you're on your way to better putting, what's next? You're going to need a good reaction when you start dropping all those putts. For instance, you don't have to think about it. Do you give it the double pump or maybe one of those? We'd like you to have all the tools. Here's a few tips on how you should react when you start to make those important putts.
Let's talk about reading. Not reading your favorite book, but reading greens. Reading greens for most amateurs is such a mystery, but it doesn't have to be. Before you play a round of golf, check out the putting green first. Look at the slopes and the curves. Is it bent grass? Is it fast? Is it Bermuda and slow? Remember, you need to practice putting and also reading the greens. Let's look at a few of those tips. The first thing I do when I'm walking up to the green is I try to determine, is it a downhill putt, a side hill putt, an uphill putt? That way I get a feel already when I'm coming up to the green what it's going to do. Then, after I get down behind the ball, I like to draw lines. My first line is right to the hole. Is it a straight putt? If it's breaking to the right, then I'll play it out 6 inches or a foot. If a foot's too much, I'll bring it into 6 inches. That way I keep narrowing the margin and I determine exactly how many inches or a foot or feet, it is from the hole. On this particular putt, it's going to break about a foot. And I've put a tee right out there. And I'm going to draw a line from this ball right to that tee. And I want to square my body up to that tee and stroke it right at that tee 1 foot from the hole. Let's try it. Square yourself up, and I'm drawing a straight line right to that tee. I'm going to stroke it right at that tee. Yeah, You can have the best putting stroke in the world, but if you don't know how to read the greens, it doesn't do you any good. So don't forget, not only do you need to practice your putting, but practice reading the greens as well.
All right, now let's review how you read the greens. Before you play, you first have to determine the kind of putting surface you're on. Is it bent or is it Bermuda? Fast or slow? And when you approach a green, you have to first start looking for the slopes. Is it uphill, downhill, or side hill? And you have to determine the amount of the break. Then pick a target line, and then putt at the target, not the hole. You know, one of the advantages of this series is that you can actually get into the heads of the top players. What do they think about when they're out there putting under the gun? For instance, how often would you like to sit down with a player like Steve Jones and just talk about the mind games of putting and how he deals with it? Let's face it, what goes on in your head actually plays into the equation as well.
Let's talk about the mental approach to putting. I believe the most important thing you can do before you stroke that putt is to stay focused on what you're doing. And number two, once you get your routine down, stick to that routine. Get the line of your putt, stick to your routine, and stroke it. When you practice 2 strokes and hit the ball, do that. Don't take an extra minute or 2 to look at the putt. Once you figure out what you're going to do with the putt, go ahead and stroke it. And that's what you want to do, is focus in on that line, focus on your stroke, and stick to it. Once I've lined up my putt, and I know that it's going to be an inside right putt, I go through my routine. I square my shoulders up, my feet up, and what I normally like to do is take 2 little practice strokes, just like I'm going to hit the ball. I watch the line, I look down the line 1 time, then I stroke it. One of the things I think about is the rhythm of my stroke, the putter blade. I don't want to jerk it back, and I don't want to take it back real slow either. The main thing I try to do is take it back smooth and accelerate through. You need to be very confident when you're stroking that putt. If you want to make it, first of all, be confident. Even if you stroke it well, there's some days you're just not going to make those putts. Everybody goes through it. It's easy to get discouraged and down on yourself, but a good putter always comes back and tries again.
Now a drill from Steve.
Here's a drill I like to do on long putts. I like to get 10 or 20 balls, line up, and stroke it. Go through your routine, get your line, and stroke it. Making sure you accelerate on each putt. Looking at that line, stroking it. It's a great tool because it gives you a feel for the longer putts, and you know exactly what you're doing, if you're opening it or closing it or whatever. And it really helps you to gain confidence in your stroke and your routine. So now you got the rhythm of a 30-footer, then move to a 40-footer, a 50-footer, a 60-footer. But usually that 20 to 50-foot range is where all of us spend most of our time. So continue to practice. That's the most important thing you can do.
Hey, show this tape to your friends. It really works. If I can putt better, you can putt better. Well, that wraps up another edition of the PGA Tour Partners Club Game Improvement video series. I'm sure that Steve has been able to shed some light that will help you with your putting. And don't forget to use Martin Hall's practice drills to make it all gel. And remember, keep this tape to review if your putts start going astray. It's always a good idea to have a refresher